buenas tardes, feliz martes y bienvenidos a otro episodio más de Así Todo Comenzó. El día de hoy con mi compadre José García. Voy a dejar que tú solito nos digas qué hace José García, tu posición en este momento, y después nos regresamos hacia cómo empezó José García.
Gracias por tenerme.
Y voy a interrumpirlo, pero mi compadre está esforzándose cada día en hablar más español, pero vamos a hablarlo esta entrevista un poco spanglish, así que usted no se preocupe, compadre. Si se le cuatrapea el español, aviénteme inglés, y le aventamos chino, francés, alemán, lo que sea. Usted dele.
Sí, so I am the multicultural marketing manager for the Texas Rangers right now. Eso, todo lo que hagamos para los fanáticos hispanos, todo en español, todos los noches de herencia hispana, herencia mexicana. Vamos a hablar de Viva Texas un poquito.
La playera que traes puesta.
La playera, con mi equipo hacemos esto. Sí, un poquito más cosas que podemos hablar ya más.
Perfecto. Rato. ¿Dónde nace José García? ¿Tu infancia? ¿De familia? ¿De dónde? Todo.
Pues como los demás, un grande familia ahí de California, de Los Ángeles.
What part of California? Los Ángeles.
Yeah, Los Angeles. Originally grew up in Huntington Park,
okay.
Which is about 10-15 minutes from downtown LA. Was there till I was about 7.
Okay.
And then family decided to move more to the suburbs, so we moved what is now West Covina.
Okay.
Pero yeah.
¿De niño soñaste algún día trabajar en un equipo de las ligas mayores de béisbol?
No.
What was your dream? What was your dream job as a kid?
My dream was to play on the field.
Okay. Oh, pero sí te gustaba el béisbol.
Oh, sí, me encantaba. I played it my whole life. My dad had me para arriba, para abajo, every weekend. There wasn't really an off weekend. From the time I was 2 years old, he was my coach. So
okay.
They didn't check my birth certificate because he was the coach of the team, and I just played. And desde ahí hasta 18, I played basically every weekend, year-round. He had me, if I didn't have a team to play on one weekend, he found another team to play with. And yeah, that was
okay. So you had the love for baseball. You played it. That's
yeah. I got recruited lightly. I always tell everybody I got recruited to go to Grand Canyon University before they were cool. Before they had the cool commercials y todo. But I was lucky enough that I did really well in high school, and I got good grades. So I had some colleges going for me for academics, and I just told my dad one day I had the decision on what I was going to do going to college, and I was just like, hey, Dad, I don't think anyone is looking for a 5'10" Mexican throwing mid-80s in the league, so I think I'm going to go do this academic
thing. Pero
ahí
algo muy importante que dices, o sea, perseguiste tu sueño y llegaste a las ligas mayores, no jugando, pero pues estás en las ligas mayores en una posición muy importante, más siendo latino de padres mexicanos que no cualquiera, y pues gracias a tus calificaciones.
Sí, pues yo nunca pensé que hablando en español o será mexicano será algo de mi trabajo. Yo nunca pensé que iba a ser parte de eso. But it's a blessing. You know, when I decided to go to academics, my head was always I want to be baseball ops. Okay. Ahí quería estar hablando con el GM, qué vamos a ganar, qué vamos a hacer, con cuál jugador.
Ser parte de la organización.
Sí, eso era el sueño número 2.
Okay.
So, cuando empecé, fui a the University of San Francisco y yo ya vi que tenían un programa de Sport Management Masters.
Okay.
So, yo dije, okay, si voy for my undergrad, ya cuando termino eso, puedo empezar el otro. Y ese programa tiene un fellowship con los Giants, donde una persona cada año va y trabaja para los Giants. So, eso era mi sueño. Yo ya lo vi antes de comenzar college. Y
una persona de toda la carrera tiene esa oportunidad.
Sí.
Primero, lo difícil que es entrar a la carrera, que te den una oportunidad por tus calificaciones, y después una persona es la que puede ir y esa persona fuiste tú.
No. So, mira, esto pasó. So, yo fui a college y dije, pues, yo quiero estar empezando ese programa, tienen uno que empieza en January y uno que empieza en June.
Okay.
Yo quería empezar en January porque hacen el internship cada febrero.
Okay.
Y si comienzas en June, necesitas esperar hasta el otro.
Febrero.
So, yo ya vi eso. Y en mi freshman year in college dije, me voy a graduar en 3 años. So, ahí empecé. Gradué en diciembre.
Wow.
Y empecé el programa en enero. And ahí fuimos. Empecé. I was one of the younger ones because I had just graduated my undergrad. I went straight to college.
How old were you?
I graduated high school at 17. 3 years later, I was about 20.
Not even 21 years old. You were already
old.
working for the Giants.
Yeah, so what happened was I went through the fellowship program and we went through the whole thing, and you know, a bunch of people apply in the program and they narrow it down to a final 8, and those final 8 have to go sit at a table with all the VPs in every department.
Okay.
And there's like 10 or 12, and they do an interview with you and they just pepper you with questions. And I went through that. I thought I did really well. And one day they called me and they told me, hey, you didn't get it. It was between you and someone else. They had more experience. You know, we feel like they're a better fit. So sorry. So that was a big, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do now? You know,
El primer aterrizada, la primera aterrizada.
And I was just like, man, but leading up to that, because I wanted it to be, and this is something that I think I would tell anybody, is it was a big deal for me. I worked so hard to try to graduate in 3 years, and I wanted to make sure that wasn't my only opportunity. So when they had job fairs, I went. When I found out who the HR guy, I would email him like every month. Hey, if you ever have an opportunity to just talk, if you ever have an opportunity, not even just asking for a job, just anything I can do for free, lo que sea.
You just wanted your foot in the door.
I just wanted my foot in the door because I knew I didn't know anybody. My family, you know, they didn't know anybody. They couldn't help me out. So I was just trying to get my foot in the door. And
sí, porque eso es algo muy importante. También muchas veces vienen recomendados por el tío, por el padrino, por... Mucho. Entonces, o sea, el sacrificio que tú estabas haciendo aparte con tu familia, porque me lo has comentado, siendo el primero que fue a la universidad, de toda tu familia y la generación, y salir y ir y tocar puertas, o sea, eso es todavía un sacrificio 10 veces más grande.
Sí, and what I would tell everybody is it was scary. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like, oh yeah, I knew this was gonna happen. No, I did not know any of this was going to happen. I did not have a plan. And if I did have a plan, it definitely didn't go according to it. You know, things change. And, you know, the thing that ended up happening was I think they called me on a Thursday to tell me I didn't get it. And the guy that I kept peppering, that I went to the job fair, the HR guy was in the meeting. So he saw me with all the VPs. He was just there in the room. And I think the following Wednesday, like not even a week, he called me back and he's like, hey, your undergrad was in marketing, huh? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, we're having trouble finding a marketing intern. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, I would, of course I would be interested. And they interviewed me, and like a week or two later, I got it. So that would be like my little story to like never give up. Just when you think like, oh, this is over. You know, if you would have talked to me that Sunday or that Monday.
Se acabó.
Yeah, I had nothing. I didn't even apply for the marketing job.
Pero tenías ese segundo, o sea, la perseverancia de estar yendo con la otra persona y tener opciones abiertas te llevó ahí. Y a lo mejor decirte que no te ayudó más a echarle más ganas.
See? And then it's funny how things still happen. When I got in the marketing position, in my head I was still like, okay, well, baseball operations, I'm in the door now, so now I just need to meet. So, and I think I was there for like maybe a couple months when I started to realize like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. Because I saw the guys, you know, in baseball operations, all they did was like look at spreadsheets and Excel files y todo. And I like to talk to people. I like to, you know, be creative and do things. And
dicen que Diosito trabaja de maneras muy peculiares pero perfectas, ¿no?
Yeah, it's crazy. And just even how it started with the whole Spanish stuff and everything like that, you know, My Spanish isn't perfect. I will be the first one to tell
I
you.
know, but you try. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been knowing you for what, a year,
Yeah.
and I mean, your Spanish got way better in a year.
Well,
O sea, pero es las cosas que dices, si estoy en el lado latino, tengo que aprender y
yeah.
entiendes todo.
Yeah, I understand it all, and you know, writing it and reading it is obviously a lot easier. And you know, just working with that, you know, I think all of us Latinos that don't know Spanish perfectly, we all have a little bit of like that insecurity in you because your parents or your cousins, mostly los primos, they always get on. Oh, you said this word wrong. You said that word wrong. So you get in your head, and then the worst thing you can do is be afraid to start talking it because they made fun of you, and then you lose everything.
Claro.
Gracias a Dios que no pasó eso conmigo. My grandma lived with me basically my whole life, so she only spoke Spanish. So en ella,
las abuelitas siempre ayudan, ¿eh? Y los regaños te lo sabes más.
Sí. So what ended up happening was, it was funny. They were like, hey, you speak Spanish, right? Just randomly, like 2 months, 3 months into my internship. You speak Spanish? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, can you proofread these Spanish radio scripts for us? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I doy. And I'm right. I like every sentence has like 5 mistakes. And I'm like, what the heck? So, you know, I do them, and it's like 20 scripts. So I take them back to my boss, and I'm like, hey, here, you know. And she goes, how'd it go? And I was like, well, de veras, like, that wasn't good. That was
really
what
bad.
happened. It was really bad. And she was
Who was
like,
doing that?
and yeah, I asked who did that, and she said Google Translate.
Yeah. That happened to me before.
And I was like, oh. And she goes, you think you can help us out and write some radio scripts? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, ahí empezó the thing that I never thought, even then I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. I didn't get that, you know, I think what I would tell people too is, you know, a lot of us spend a lot of time trying to be like everybody else. The thing that sets you different is the thing that gives you your opportunity. The thing that makes you different than everyone else is what really makes you valuable.
Exactamente.
And, you know, I didn't get it at the time, and I started writing those radio scripts, and the radio scripts turned into September rolled around, and they wanted to do something for Hispanic Heritage Month, and they didn't have anyone that could speak to the players to do a video. And they asked me, hey, would you mind being in the room for the interview? You know, help us out with questions or anything. And I was like, no, I don't mind. So I went down there, helped out, spoke with a couple guys off camera, helped them do the video or whatever, and then the production team, the not the VP but the director at the time, she is half Mexican, and she always wanted to do Spanish content, and she saw the opportunity with me. So when that was September, my internship ended in October, and we all went out, you know, to celebrate my last day or whatever, or all the interns' last day. And she pulled me aside and she said, hey, you know, we have this opportunity next year for the intern for our department. You'll be an intern again. Okay. But, you know, we have this opportunity. I was like, hey, I don't know anything about video or production or anything. I don't know a camera. I don't know what a cable from another I don't know. And she was like, don't worry about that. We'll show you. If you put in the work, I'll give you the opportunity. So at the time, though, I had continued to get my foot in the door with baseball ops. So that opportunity was also there, and I had VPs at this time that already liked me, so they were putting in a good word. So I kind of had the opportunity to possibly do one or the other. So at that time, it was another, you know, are you going to go left or are you going to go right? So I decided to go with the production team and do that, and it opened so many doors. I showed up and I started showing them, hey, we can talk to these players that never had a voice, never felt comfortable doing in interviews. And for those of people that don't know, a little thing, you know, pulling back the curtain, most of the content that you see from baseball teams, at least, that are video content that look like they're in a room or an interview or something like that, most of them are done in spring training.
Okay.
Way
before the season starts.
Way before the season starts. It's kind of all programmed. You have all your content plans and everything.
Todos los videos que ves en las pantallas gigantes de que ¿cuál es tu equipo favorito? ¿Y cuál es tu canción? ¿Y tu comida?
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue into what I was going to get to was when they would do that for the Hispanic players where they spoke Spanish, they would ask them topical questions, but like some of the Hispanic players didn't know because they didn't grow up here. They don't know the things and and even when they're being peppered with questions in English, they're worried about how do I sound and all that, and they're trying to do it in English. And when I got there, I just started talking to the players in Spanish, and they appreciated my effort and my little ability to speak it at the time, and little is figurative.
Había más sudamericanos que mexicanos.
Oh, sí, muchos más. And that was a whole nother thing I had to learn, like the ear to understand,
El acento
oh my God.
venezolano, colombiano.
Because it was so funny. I remember when people would they would just pull me out, oh, you speak Spanish, right? Yeah. And then they would translate. And I'd just be like, they would say a sentence and I'd be like,
I don't know what you said.
And then, but the guys are really cool because they appreciate that you even try, and they understand where you're coming from because kind of where I started with my Spanish is kind of where they were at with their English.
Exactly.
So they would tell me the same things. They would be like, "Oh, all right, we'll meet you halfway." You know what I mean? Like wherever, and they understood that I understood them. From a culture standpoint, and that was the most important thing. And
y muchos de ellos, o sea, a mí me tocó estar. Bueno, cuando trabajé un rato en ESPN Deportes, muchos de ellos van llegando y estás como tú dices, o sea, piensas tú, un jugador, pero no les explica nada, andan perdidísimos.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't have family there, they don't have friends, they don't have anybody that they know or let alone speak Spanish or whatever. So anybody that they just feel comfortable around that gets them, they really appreciate it. And I would go out of my way to, a lot of the times when they would allow me to go into the dugout, or the clubhouse, I would just go down there and just, talk with them, not ask them for anything, just, hey, how's it going or whatever. And we'd start friendships like that. And little by little, what ended up happening was, I would start asking and having ideas like, hey, let's do a mic'd up, where you put the mic on them. And guys would be more willing to do it. And I'd be like, you can do it all in Spanish. Do it all in Spanish. I'll translate the subtitles for you, and that way you don't have to worry about anything. Well, another thing with players that people might not know, they don't have to do it. Si no lo quieren hacer, if you don't...
No está en su contrato.
No, they don't have to do any of the stuff you see. They can say no to everything. So a little bit is of convincing them. So, getting them to be able to do it in Spanish are they're agreeance to do it all just kept going up and up and up and up, and more players started saying yes, and they would just ask, are you doing the interview? Yeah.
O sea, es que le abriste la puerta de lo que no existía.
Yeah, and little by little, guys like Cueto would do interviews and, all this other stuff. So little by little, I started doing that, and I found, again, my little niche of things.
¿Cuál era el latino más buena onda?
It was Johnny Cueto.
Sí.
And he was awesome. He was awesome. He was such a cool guy to me, and he took care of me. And, he would just, we would talk just randomly. I would ask him how his kids are doing, and, we would just hang out. And, he wasn't always willing to do a lot of the content, prior to me being there. And even after me being there, it's not like I convinced him to do a bunch of it, but he would feel comfortable with me. And I think a lot of the guys did. And, we just started being able to, doing videos and photo shoots and all that just opens the door to being able to market the player and market their personality. And if a player's, especially a Hispanic player, can be themselves on camera, more Hispanic people or non-Hispanic people will start to like them a little bit more. They'll start to understand them.
Es que se van a sentir más conectados con el jugador.
Sí.
¿Y cuánto duraste en total en los San Francisco Giants?
3 años y medio. It was 2 intern years and a full.
¿Y cómo llega la espinita y cómo llegan los Rangers y dicen, no, lo tenemos que traer?
So COVID happened.
Okay.
And the long story short about that, so COVID happened, and there was a little time there where.
Porque había otros equipos queriéndote robar también.
Well, yeah, I mean, so they say. I mean, I don't know. So that's what I've heard, and at the time, I think the Milwaukee Brewers and the Rangers were the two ones that
Hasta
had
arriba de la
opportunity.
lista.
Yeah. So, in my head, just being honest, and we can go back to the little bit of the story, is like growing up, where I grew up, is like my goal's always been to have a house. You know what I mean? I didn't want to rent. I didn't want to, rent my house or rent an apartment. And, in California, and it's hard. It's real hard. And, when I got up there into college and started, working and making money and, seeing the check, and when you're young, you don't get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, yeah, I have all this money. You're not paying student loans yet. You're not, whatever. So you're like, oh, yeah, I could do this. And then you start getting to the point where, okay, I need a down payment for a house. I need a down payment for a car. I need this. And you start adding up the numbers, and you're like, how does this work? Like, this doesn't make sense. So I think it was probably my senior year of college, my undergrad senior year, when I started to realize, like, I'm probably not going to be able to stay here in California. I'm probably going to have to leave. And that bummed me out a little bit because, I think the dream was always to go back home and being able to.
Que también puede pasar, porque de repente ahorita con lo que estás haciendo con los Rangers, no dudes que.
Yeah, I mean.
A mí sí me hace que tu sueño es regresar a los Dodgers, pero.
un poquito.
Sí.
A ver si pasa.
Pero todavía no.
Ahorita me encanta Dallas. I mean, ahorita tengo una playera, esta nueva, y atrás dice 214.
Exacto.
Y la agarré porque, pues, para mí, esta ciudad me agarró como si fuera de aquí. Okay. They welcome me with open arms. People like you, everyone that I've met here has been so nice. And when I got here, I had nobody. There's no family here. There's no friends here. I started from zero. And this city and the DFW area has just been so nice to me and my girlfriend. And the people here have been so nice. And,
And you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
You're turning... I mean, yo trabajé no directamente con los Rangers, pero hace poquito, como unos 10 años, cuando yo estaba en un internship en ESPN Deportes, me tocó hacer las entrevistas de los Rangers y o sea, el béisbol es uno de los deportes, cuando lo cubres, más cansados porque son 3, 4 juegos del mismo equipo. Se acaba una serie y empieza la otra. Entonces, estar viendo el mismo juego contra el mismo equipo 3, 4 veces, estar entrevistándolo, es difícil crear contenido.
Oh, sí.
O sea, yo también hice una buena amistad con los jugadores allá abajo y ponían salsita. Y era la época maravillosa de los Rangers, cuando estaba Elvis Andrus, Nelson Cruz, Neftali Feliz, Beltre, que llegaron 2 veces a la Serie Mundial. A mí me tocó el primer año. Entonces, o sea, era una época maravillosa de los Rangers. Llegas tú y es de la época la temporada, yo creo, más fea de los Rangers, la primera, y le cambias la cara completamente. O sea, el equipo empieza a generar y ganar como en esa temporada, pero todo lo que estás haciendo alrededor del mercado latino es impresionante.
Oh, pues muchas gracias. Getting back to the story, we'll eventually get there, but, there was a little time there with COVID that kind of ruined everyone's, life and how we knew it and how everyone was just comfortable.
Everything changed.
And, there was things at the Giants at that time. I was in a position where they were talking to me about possibly becoming more than just a video person and maybe doing something. And it wasn't confirmed and it wasn't denied before, obviously, COVID hit. And then de repente COVID, hit. And I was like, oh, no. And then there was a point there where a lot of the league started to get furloughed. And we all had to learn what furlough means. It means you're not fired, but you're not really employed,
yeah.
So then, we didn't get hit yet. And then I was like, oh, no. So what's going to happen here? And then finally it hit me. And I was just like, okay, so what are we going to do now? And there was a little time there where no one was really hiring and no one was doing anything, especially in California. I mean, aquí I joke with people, but Texas, I don't know what happened with you guys in COVID, but in California, we were not allowed. We were not allowed to go anywhere.
It was a wow south. Yeah.
Yeah, because in California, it was crazy. You would walk out and there would be nobody in cities.
New York, Chicago.
Yeah, in cities, there's photos of, just the city, nobody there, nobody open.
Y la economía les afectó mucho más.
Yeah, and it was scary, especially for some, it's not like we could have asked our parents, like, hey, what do we do? They didn't go through it. Mm-hmm. So everyone was learning, and, we got to the point in October where, baseball had already come back and they figured out how to do, what they were doing with no fans. And then they said that they were going to play in Texas, and the Dodgers had the potential to go to the World Series. Mm-hmm. I'm a big Dodger fan. So I looked at my girlfriend. I was like, hey, why be here? Let's go to Texas. Let's go watch the Dodgers play. So we bought tickets and we flew out here and we went to the World Series. Our families thought we were crazy. And, I told my girlfriend.
And it was one of the cheapest World Series.
Oh, yeah, by far. By far. I would tell everybody, if it was a regular World Series, yeah. I would have not been able to afford it. I wouldn't have not been able to go.
I went to a championship game with the Braves, and it was here too. Y luego también World Series, uno de los juegos, y pues dije, pues bueno, estamos aquí, hay que darle.
Yeah, it was a great time, and then it was also like there wasn't a lot of people there, mm-hmm. so it felt intimate.
No había tráfico.
Yeah, there was no traffic.
Es lamentable la situación, pero ya tenías que aprender a vivir con ella y había muchas cosas que estaban un poquito diferentes que también estaban chidas, ¿eh?
Yeah, and it was interesting how when we got here, well, before we were, I think, in the waiting room at the airport waiting for our flight to get here, and I looked at my girlfriend joking, and I was like, what if we moved to Dallas? And she was like, I'm not moving to Texas. And I was like, come on, like, what if we... She's like, oh, no, there's just... Texas, there's just guns and cowboys. And I was like...
And barbecue.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's not like that, I promise. So we showed up. We stayed here in Dallas and in Uptown. And, we spent the weekend here. We went to a couple games. We saw them win and everything. And then on the way back, there was stuff that happened here. Just the people were just so nice. It's so clean. There's so much space.
Áreas verdes, no hay basura en la calle.
It was so nice. It was so nice. And she looked at me on the plane right back without me even asking. And she was like, you know what? Maybe. It was pretty nice.
Se fue de I'll never move to Texas to maybe.
And just how life works, like you're saying, I didn't put it out there to anybody. And then de repente, my boss sent me, hey, would you be interested in these two things? And it was the Brewers and the Rangers. I was like, yeah. He goes, okay, well, submit your applications. And, I know people. I'll put your name up. And it wasn't like a week or two. I got a call from both. I interviewed for both. And mero. I thought I was going to Milwaukee. Like this close. I thought I had it. I thought it was in the bag. Íbamos a ir a Milwaukee. I'd never been there, never visited, never done anything. And I was like, let's go.
I'm so glad you came in here because I just went to Milwaukee like about a month ago. No.
Hey,
creo que Arlington está más grande que Milwaukee.
Hey, nothing against Milwaukee. It was going to be nice, but I don't know how I would have handled that snow now looking back on it. But the Rangers, small world. My boss now used to work on the AT&T account. And before he got into baseball, and the Giants Stadium used to be called AT&T Park.
Okay.
So my boss there, that was his contact. That's how they knew each other. So, I guess they were having trouble filling this position, which was at the time a coordinator. And they asked my boss, hey, do you know anyone that would be good for this position? And they recommended me, and the rest is history. They called, they said they would do it, and I looked at my girlfriend and I was like, hey.
Ya estaba en tu destino.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go to Texas. And I didn't think she was going to come. There's that whole thing, too.
Madre, yo no te dejo solo allá. No sé,
well, she, like, when I got the call, it was May. And she had just graduated with her master's. And so it was a little bit of a, like, she had a job lined up in San Francisco. And it was a little bit of, like, I'm not going to make you change your life from me changing mine. And she was like, yeah, you're funny. vámonos.
Sí, no. Y afortunadamente la línea de trabajo de ella, pues la puede hacer en donde quiera, ¿no? Entonces, tú sí tenías que venirte con este equipo y qué bueno, ¿no? O sea, porque
there's only 30 places you can do my job technically. You know what I mean? There's only 30 places.
30 equipos de las ligas mayores.
Yeah.
Y llegaste a Texas.
Yeah, it was different. To say the least, it was different.
Porque no vamos a hablar así, o sea, no vamos a decir nada malo, pero también llegar a una organización que tampoco es mucho del lado latino y que pongan una canción en español estaba difícil. Estás cambiando esa zona porque yo lo viví, o sea, no es porque tú lo estés diciendo, yo lo viví, o sea, ponían salsa en el clubhouse y todo y luego se las cambiaban y no quieren que pongamos música en español, o sea, yo lo viví. Pero, o sea, estás haciendo cosas muy interesantes que yo creo que ahorita todos dicen, oh, who's that guy? Come here. Ya como que te están dando el crédito y que sepa la afición de los Rangers que muchas de las cosas que están sucediendo y que están entrando al mercado latino y mexicano, pues es gracias a ti. O sea, no hay que darle para otro lado, la verdad.
Sí, pues empezando ahí, it was different. They never had my position before me getting there, and there aren't many teams that have it. You know, thank you to my VP. You know, him being there, he saw the opportunity when he got there. He hadn't been in baseball that long, and he got there and he was like, how do we not have, you know, a multicultural person? Like, how do we not have someone that takes care of this? Like, with the demographics and stuff that we have, like, we need this. So it was good on him for even seeing that opportunity. And then when I got there, the way they had it set up was so nice. They, you know, when I got there, they really gave me the power to make it what it needed to be. They had a little bit of a vision of like, okay, we want you to do this and that and whatever. But, you know, for the most part, they were like, whatever you think we should be doing, let's start talking about it. And, you know, when I got there, it, like I tell you, it was very different than, we've had this talk a million times, but you can't compare Southern California to Texas. And it's just a different market. Not that one's right or the other one's wrong or whatever, but it's just different. And I didn't want to be the guy that was the LA guy coming in doing LA things thinking I knew everything. No, it was for that first, I would say half a year to 8 months, I just sat back and watched. I watched how the organization really worked. I did my little things here and there. And then I started like looking around, okay, what is happening? You know.
Que es algo muy inteligente de tu parte porque muchas veces, como tú dices, quieren llegar y querer mover el mundo y todo, pero es aunque sea Estados Unidos, Texas y California son dos mundos completamente distintos.
And I had to figure out, okay, ¿dónde viven? What's the history? What happened? What, you know, every city has their story about what happened with the Hispanic people or the Mexican people or whatever.
¿Y de qué parte de México son? Porque en California la mayoría son del lado de Sinaloa, del lado de Sonora, todo. Y acá pues estás hablando del lado de San Luis, de Guanajuato, de Michoacán. O sea, es el mexicano de Texas y el mexicano de California son mexicanos, pero son de partes completamente distintas.
Y también es diferente de Dallas a Fort Worth.
Ah, claro.
So,
y tú estás en medio.
So, you know, you have to be able to talk to everybody and you have to be able to understand everybody. So there was the 8 months of like, okay, you know, here's Oak Cliff. Here's, you know, Traders Village.
Garland.
Here's Garland. You know, here's, you know, Grand Prairie, Fort Worth, La Gran Plaza. You know, all that stuff, you know, just touring the Michelada Festival or a concert or whatever. And, you know, little by little, I started to get in with Univision, who's a partner with the Rangers, and they invited me to Latino Mix, and I see people show up on a Thursday in thousands. And, you know, after being here for a couple months, it was like, you know, I think, you know, I was missing seeing nuestra gente everywhere. You know, I felt like it was really normal for me to step out my door and I would see, you know, Hispanic or Mexican people in every corner, at every store. And when I got here, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. Like, you had to go drive.
Pero aquí es una ciudadsota, pero en realidad la comunidad mexicana o la comunidad hispana es un pueblote porque muchos se conocen, ¿eh?
Yeah.
Porque empezó demasiado tarde a comparación de California.
Yeah. And once I started to get an understanding of, okay, this is where that is. And then my ideas started to like try to form to make all that happen. And it's through people like you.
No,
through people like, Univision and todos nuestros amigos también. And like I tell you, you know everybody.
Sí.
You know everybody.
Hemos estado en el negocio desde los 18 años y es lo que te digo, o sea, con el transcurso del tiempo era muy pequeño el círculo de lo que era la radio, la televisión, los Rangers, o sea, era muy pequeño que ha ido creciendo y pues con gente como tú, como te digo, o sea, si usted ve en el estadio que hay unos mariachis o que salió un ballet folclórico o que si venden tacos, que si venden micheladas, es porque mi compadre tuvo que irse a meter a una junta y les dijo, dice esa michelada y le tuvieron que entender.
Yeah.
Pero en realidad, o sea, ya dejando de bromas, compadre, el trabajo y la posición que tienes es un trabajo que muchos niños desde pequeños sueñan con estar trabajando en un equipo de las ligas mayores, no nada más en Estados Unidos, en México, en Sudamérica, en Japón, o sea, los países más beisboleros. Y qué bonito y que lo tengas tú, que tengas esa experiencia, que vengas de una familia mexicana, que tengas esa cultura y que poco a poquito vayas abriéndote camino, porque yo sé que vas a llegar a un lugar todavía mucho más grande.
Oh, muchas gracias. Pues la cosa que digo a la gente, pues nomás es el trabajo. You just got to keep moving forward. And if things don't go your way, that doesn't mean you stop. Sometimes something happens to you or you fail and you don't know that that's the thing that's setting you up in the place you should be going.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And sometimes failures are blessings. And I've slowly learned that, and it's hard to come to terms with sometimes. But, little by little, I mean, we can start talking about everything that we do now. I mean, after those 8 months, it was like, okay, now I need to get on top of this. Now we need to do something. So, my story to them was we need to be authentically engaging with this community, but we also need to be aware of who we are. We can't just come out, the guns are blazing out. Oh, now we're here for everybody. We didn't earn that. We haven't earned that place in the community yet.
Exactly.
It takes time. So my first year plan was like, hey, we're going to do these little things. We can do a lot more. Trust me. I want to do a lot more. Para toda la gente que, hey, why don't they do this? It's coming. It's just, we got to take time. And, these things take a long time to build, a foundation for what this company and what this organization from a multicultural standpoint is going to base all of its stuff on. You want to build a solid foundation.
Claro.
So the thing we started with was I said we're gonna engage this community with culture, and culture being art, food, music, and people. That and it's our family. When you go, that at its most simple sense, that's everything that we love the music, we love the art, we love the food, and just the people that are a part of it. So. My way of doing that was, what's a better way to do it than have a party every Saturday? I mean, that's what we do when I was at my house.
Exactly.
We'd have a carne asada. You send a text to all your family, friends. Todos llegan. You play some music. You have some carne asada, and you have some bebidas, y ahí la pasamos.
Chéves.
So I wanted to do that at the stadium, and I didn't want to just do it in September. I wanted to show the people we were there for them all year round, and I think it was really important to do that. So. We started with a concept that I came up with called Viva Tejas, where we have a band come out, play a free show. We'd have, mom and pop vendors. It was really important for me to bring in small businesses that, didn't have the ability to maybe pay the price to get into the stadium. But I knew if I gave them the opportunity to be outside, maybe inside would pay attention a little and be like, hey, they're selling a lot of, whatever. Maybe we get them in here. Maybe that happens. And sure enough, I mean, now if you go to a Ranger game, they sell micheladas almost every game. And, the vendor that does it was a vendor that started with me that first year of Viva Tejas. So, they're Patiños micheladas. Now you can get them inside the stadium for most of the games. And now they sell ceviche, nachos. So just two things that, at the time, like you were saying, I kind of had to even explain what micheladas were. And, you know, that's just one thing. And then we did Mexican Heritage Night last year for the first time, where we gave out a hat and then a jersey. We were 35 games out of first place. It ended up being one of our top 5 selling games of the year. And people showed up, and, you know, the lines were all the way out to the street before gates opened on a Friday in September. We were not even close. Yeah, there was no reason for that many people to be there. And I think that's when everyone got put on.
Tu idea?
Yeah, got put on notice. The jersey and everything. It was a little bit of a baby of mine, doing the serape pattern and everything like that.
Y que la gente se empieza, como tú dijiste, se empieza a involucrar y a sentir que sí lo quieren en un equipo, es algo muy importante. Simplemente tener a un mariachi ahí los días que son de mariachi, que vean eso, que todo... Ellos no saben todas las puertas que tuviste que tocar y todos los corajes que te llevaste a tu casa porque no te hacen caso muchas veces. Pero cuando se siente ese calorcito, y ahorita el sábado lo vivimos en un concierto abarrotado, y la gente estaba contenta, o sea, lo sentías y eufórica, y gritaban y cantaban y bailaban, o sea, es un ambiente que yo no había visto antes en nada de los eventos de esa organización.
Oh, pues, I mean, like you said, you were there this past weekend where we did Mexican Heritage Night again, and, you know, you can speak from your experience. I mean, how many people were there after the show?
Estaba soldado del estadio, la gente, todo el mundo. No tienes idea de todas las veces todas las personas que yo he visto que suben la gorra que diste con la versión mexicana, o sea... Es toda una experiencia y todavía falta, y lo que sigue y el próximo año, y espero los Rangers sepan que no te dejen ir, porque si no, la verdad, al equipo que llegues vas a cambiar todo por completo.
Oh, pues muchas gracias. I mean, and that's just a little bit. The two things we talked about, Viva Tejas and the Mexican Heritage Night, just a little bit. We do Hispanic Heritage Night. We do
Loteria nights.
Loteria nights that are coming this year. We also had last year we started with the mariachi, which you mentioned. We had our own mariachi band. We did their own trajes. We customized them. We got them made in Mexico, in Guadalajara. You know, just working with sastres down there was such a cool opportunity. They sent us a book, and I'm in there with my art director, like picking out, you know, what is it gonna look like and all that stuff, and people loving that. When we unveiled that uniform for them, it was like one of the top 5 posts of the year on Facebook for us. Just engagements, just people loving it. And then that turned into Mariachi Mondays now. So if you come to a home game at the Texas Rangers on Mondays, the mariachis are playing. So, you know, little by little, we're getting things, and we're, you know, eventually I would love to break it out and do, you know, a lot more countries and a lot more nights for everybody, you know, make it more all inclusive. But like I said, little by little, we're having those little fights.
Vas a pasos agigantados.
Yeah.
Y todo va perfecto.
Mm-hmm. And then the thing that has nothing to do with our, you know, Hispanic situation, the other things is like I'm a huge streetwear fan. And one of the things that we did was we worked with this company called By Way of Dallas. It was a streetwear brand from Dallas, and we were able to offer a hoodie, crew neck, and all that for the first time. The brand looking in a way that it never looked before, working with them and letting them kind of take our brand and do that for the first time, and that did really, really well as well.
Y la jersey que traes puesta, o sea...
So yeah, the team worked on this, and you know, the City Connect is such a big thing for the MLB, and you know, being able to work on the team that, you know, help conceptualize and how we were going to market, and you know, I had some say or some sway in how we put it out, and the influencers that we use and stuff. When we use people like Juan Velasquez, who does murals in Fort Worth, and we used a bunch of different people from around the cities of Dallas and over there, and you know, just being able to get the community to be a part of it. And I mean, even the youth academy, what the Rangers do, and having kids be a part of the commercials and everything, just ultimately everything that I'm saying, I think at the end of the day is just to get to the point of like, I want to get this organization to the point where people feel like we see and we hear them, because we do. I'm in there fighting, you know, every day so that we can do things so
Y
people
eso
can be seen
eso
and
es lo
heard.
más importante, ese es el punto. Que de parte de este podcast era ponerle una cara a esa persona que está haciendo eso, porque mucha gente se está preguntando ahorita, y los Rangers de repente, ¿por qué están haciendo eventos latinos, mexicanos? ¿Por qué venden micheladas? Porque no lo había. O sea, los Rangers, cuando yo llegué y fue mi primer partido, o sea, era cacahuates, hot dogs y nachos, hamburguesa y se acabó. Y todo el mundo era howdy, howdy, Mr. Joe, y se acabó. O sea, y a la gente mexicana, a la gente latina le encanta el béisbol.
Sí, le encanta.
Y era una organización muy cerrada. O sea, no vamos a hablar algo que no lo es. Y ahorita, gracias a todo lo que está pasando y a que contrataron a una persona como tú y que están dándose cuenta, como tú lo dices, llegarle a la cultura y llegarle a la gente y decirle, te estamos escuchando, es la clave.
Nos vemos.
Claro que sí. Y pues llegado el tiempo de despedirnos, pero esta plática estuvo muy interesante. Véalo. Si usted va al juego de los Rangers y ve a los mariachis o al ballet folclórico o a cualquier evento, se toma una michelada, se come un taco, lo que sea, él fue el encargado, él fue la persona, él es la persona indicada para decirle gracias si se lo encuentra ahí. José García, Marketing Multicultural de los Rangers. Muchas gracias, compadre, por todo y por abrirnos tu corazón y explicarnos cómo todo comenzó.
No, pues muchas gracias por tenerme.
Nos vemos el próximo martes en otro episodio más de Así Todo Comenzó. Este fue mi compadre José. Gracias.
Gracias.